Hey guys, Xylus here. This video is going to be dedicated to my top 5 PvP epic characters. So for people whose accounts might not have as many legendaries, or they're just not super built yet, this one's going to be talking about epic characters, their abilities, how I see them in PvP, probably playing close to 100 matches at this point, and just like seeing people use them. Uh, Unfortunately, not all of them are built on my account. We just don't have enough resources right now to build every single unit, which is unfortunate because I would definitely love to test more of the epic units and play around with them, but we just don't have enough resources to build every single one of them max with gear. So maybe in the future, once we're reaching closer and closer to true endgame, we can play around with the epic tier units. But the thumbnail kind of has a description and shows a picture of my top 3. And again, people can disagree with me, but this is just through my experience of playing PvP and what I've seen people use and how they use the characters. But my top 1 would actually be Nightingale. I did a PvP match against one of the top 5 players in Battle Power. This guy over here, so I guess he's 6 now, but he used Nightingale against me, and I was shocked by how good she was. Unfortunately, I built her for early Tower of Conquest gameplay, and I would have to use my Castelias to actually get her for like a PvP lineup, so unfortunately I kind of screwed myself long term. But just to quickly talk about her, you're going to want her best in slot, which is the cube. That's every healer's best in slot. You're definitely going to want Mercy of the High Priestess, and you're probably going to want Fancy Hat, Disaster Bottle, just extra little support options. But just to quickly talk about her, and what shocked me that made her so good is her AoE damage taken is decreased by 30%. So to try to she's always going to be hanging back and behind the enemy lines or behind your lines, so you're not really going to get a 1v1 against her and kind of smack her. You're really going to be hitting her with AoE damage, and just the fact she has 30% damage reduction from that means she's going to be surviving a lot of those AoE hits, which other units wouldn't. Now, this is what really shocked me. If an ally within 6 tiles is dying, increases her movement by 2 tiles and her speed by 200. So she gets 278 speed, which is higher than Simona. So she guarantees gets to act first in the turn order if an ally is dying within 6 tiles. She decreases the cooldown of all skills by 2 turns. And then, unfortunately, again, I don't have her built well, but you would want to take Painkiller, you would want to take Bandage, Merciful Strike, Regenerate you can take, Tranquilizer's also insanely good too, but you just run up, use Bandage, instant skill, so it doesn't even cost us a turn to use, and then you would use Painkiller, which is also an insta-kill, or instant skill, and then you can just heal up with her first aid. Heals 80% HP. So you can bring a character pretty much that's dying and bring them back to full health, or you can heal 3 separate characters. She gets a nice protection of light. When hit by an active single target, damage taken is reduced by 30%. So again, 30% damage reduction against single target attacks, 30% damage reduction against AoE attacks, and then she has an instant healing skill, another instant healing skill, and then her first aid. You can also rock Tranquilizer on her, which is an instant sleep. So if she runs up to an enemy, casts sleep on them, then they're out of combat for 2 turns, unless someone hits them with damage. So how sleep works is your character can't act unless they take some form of damage. If they take damage, then they can act or get healed or removed a debuff. But if played correctly, insanely good. Again, it shocked me how incredibly good she was in PvP for an epic character. And he without spoiling the video, he did win, and I think it's solely because of Nightingale. And how incredibly good she was. My next character would honestly be Ballista. I have him fully built. If you've watched any of my previous videos, he's almost always on my team. He does really, really high damage, and his ability Siege can lock down areas and create super, super big danger zones. But to kind of go into it, at 5-star, increases attack by 20%. If he does standby, then he gains Concentrate, which increases his basic attack range by 1, and then also grants him armor piercing. I have him on Rays of the Sun Turret. Not the greatest rolls, but he usually acts pretty late in the turn order because of his speed. It's not super high, and most of the time he's attacking an enemy that's already injured. So if they're below 70% HP, he ignores 20% of their defense, again, ignores another 20% of their defense. So he ignores 40% of their defense. If he has Concentrate, he also has armor piercing. So he's ignoring a massive amount of the enemy's defense, which means his attacks just do huge damage because he's pretty much hitting them with 30 to 40% of what their true defense is. He also, if he attacks someone, just hits them with a decreased physical defense by 40%. This also works with Siege, because as long as it attacks. So even in AoE, still hits them with the defense down too. I love using Catapult. For 140% damage to one enemy. It has a 4 range threat zone, which is pretty massive. Shield Breaker means it cannot be blocked. Increases his attack by 45% when attacking enemies with shield. So if he's hitting Simona, his attack does extra 45%. And it can't be blocked. So Coco, Mytha can't do anything against that. And it also knocks the target back 1 tile. So my favorite thing in this game is Collision. If he knocks the enemy into another enemy, it's going to do extra damage. If he knocks them into a wall, does extra damage. Or if positioned not great, knockback off the cliff, insta-kill. Overall, super great for me. I have him on Whale Hunter just because I've maxed this out, but I think his best in slot is Star Raid. I just have it on Fakehowl. I do think his best trinket is the Berserk Ensigns. The reason is you kind of want him to stand by for 1 turn. So if you pop Berserk, he gets increased movement by 1 tile, increased damage, and it also procs his Concentrate, which is amazing. So he gets that extra ranged basic attack with extra movement plus extra damage. Overall, if you've watched any of my previous videos, he just is a spicy unit to play against, and has great potential to kind of come in and kill 1 or 2 units and finish them off near the end of the turn order. And his siege skill plus Anana really locks down an area. Like a 3x6 range is massive. So he is quite a threat to deal with, and for me, one of the most used epic characters. But again, I would probably use some of the other characters more often if I had the resources to build them. After that, I would say Butterfly. Again, it's so unfortunate that I don't have her built, because I actually have seen people use her and do big work. To talk about her trait, increases attack by 15%. At the end of the turn, dispels 1 debuff from 4 random allies within 3 tiles. That's huge. 4 allies, so pretty much every person on her team is going to get a debuff removed from them if she's within 3 tiles, which should most likely be the case almost all the time. And then she grants 2 level 1 buffs to 4 allies. So she removes 1 debuff and gives 4 allies 2 level 1 buffs. Pretty good free ability that just happens. Her kind of 2 best skills are going to be Dance of Encouragement. Increases damage by 15% to all other allies within 5 tiles. This pretty much, you're not going to have an ally outside of 5 tile range. You can proc this at the beginning of the PvP battle, and it lasts for 3 turns. So by the time you start clashing with the enemies, like, this is still going to be on. 15% damage increase is huge. Also grants them 30% lifesteal. That's pretty much a free heal for just attacking the enemy. You can go from pretty low health to pretty high health with 30% lifesteal, especially if you're hitting 8,000 damage attacks in a turn. Her Enchanting Dance is huge if played correctly. This is where I find she's so dangerous. It's an instant skill, and it swaps positions with any character within 3 tiles. That, if played correctly, is so strong. Because you can have an ally on the field, like your ally on the field, move, and as an enemy, or if an enemy moves and she goes after them, she can swap positions with them into a super dangerous position. I've seen people swap me onto the rail tracks, and then the train comes in and kills my character. Or I've seen her come in, swap one of my characters next to a barrel, and then hit the barrel, and then pretty much almost kill my character. It's super dependent on positioning, but when it gets used, it's fantastic. It does good work. That on top of her Dance of Encouragement, plus she can use Cure Blow, Inspired Healing. I would most likely have Inspired Healing on her. You know, give her some damage reduction. Her best in slot would be Newborn Blade. I would most likely use Disaster Bottle on her, just to get that extra support debuff. Trinket, I might use Mercy of the High Priestess. I might use Elegance of the Empress, just to also remove debuffs or convert them into buffs too. Overall, I wish I had the resources to build her, because I would love to build her and play with her more, because I just have seen people who have built her, and she's incredible on the field. And definitely a danger to watch out for, with her ability to swap positions with any character. After that, I would pick Lash. I personally haven't seen anyone use Lash against me. The reason I pick her on this list is because her abilities are so good, and I would love to see more people use her, because I think she deserves the spotlight. She increases her magic, after attacking, she deals 30% of magic attack as piercing damage. Again, piercing damage ignores physical defense and magical defense, so it just does. If she's at 3,000 magic attack, she just hits you for 1,000 magic damage after. If she uses a support or healing skill, additionally heals the target once for 20% of magic attack. Honestly, you're not going to be using as her support, you're going to be using her as a DPS. Some of her skills are really cracked, especially the Whip of Blame. It deals 60% damage to all enemies in a straight line, 5 tile range. She has 3 movement plus 5 tile range, means she has a danger zone of, or a threat range of 8 tiles. That's quite a lot. After she uses the attack, it does another attack, deals piercing damage equals to 30% of the character's magic attack. I'm going to show you kind of what this does. It can hit an enemy 4 times. We'll just show you quickly. I have her on the field right now. I'll just show you how it works and what I mean by it does 4 instances of damage. So we'll use Urgent Order on her to get her to go next. She comes up, procs this. If it hits all enemies within the line, so if people are stacked up, you can hit 2, 3, 4 enemies. But once, twice, again, 3 times, 4 times. So if you build her really, really high magic attack, that one ability smokes them for 4 instances of damage. And it does piercing damage. Again, I unfortunately don't have her built, but I would love to build her up and use her, because that attack, I feel like, can do work against enemies. She also has Dark Ripple, fantastic AoE attack, 2 tile radius, 3 range. It inflicts passive, so the enemies can't use passive skills or reaction skills. That's huge, because passive skills and reaction skills are usually the bread and butter of most characters' builds. Hopefully within the next few weeks I can build her up, because I would love to do a showcase PvP video of all the characters I'm talking about, but especially her. I think her best in slot is Starry Sky. As a trinket, unsure right now. Hourglass probably pretty good. Fancy Hat pretty good. Just stat wise, having that on. You know, you can always Disaster Bottle is quite good on every unit just to give them that ability to debuff enemies. Magician would be her best Tarot. I unfortunately just threw random stuff on her, but overall I think she's a great character and one of those sleepers like Leonide that people aren't using, that if they've built, I really think they should throw them on their lineup and take some people by surprise. She has Dark Withering, inflicts life loss on all enemies, gets rid of 50% of the healing received. Another ability that would be pretty good on her would be M defense boost, 40% M defense to all allies, and also grants them immunity to disrupt. Could be huge, especially if you're going against a team that has a lot of AoE threats. My last person would be Lightning. I have seen a couple people use her. She's part of the Union, so if you pair her up with Gloria, quite good. She's a Seeker, which means she has 5 movement as well as jump. So huge mobility. I personally like putting on increased speed, increased crit if moved more than 3 tiles. For people who may not be expecting her to act as quickly as she does, she gets about 216 speed. Makes her really, really high in the turn order. Can take people by surprise with her movement plus her speed. She also does good damage. Increased physical attack by 15% and physical defense by 15%. If she's healthy and within a foe's threat range, she decreases damage taken by 30%. That lasts for an entire turn. So if she gets hit 2 or 3 times, all that damage being taken on her is reduced by 30%. When hit by an active attack, the damage is decreased by 8%, and she gains damage reduction. So that's 20, 28, 30, so he gets a 58% damage reduction for one whole turn. And then also after that turn, she still has a 28% damage reduction for 2 turns. So quite a tanky character overall. It can take a couple hits without going down. If she uses a basic attack, inflicts physical defense, magical defense, down on the target. Not super great, but here the Phantom Storm is their bread and butter. Huge AoE 3x4. Inflicts, attack down, move down. Move down in PvP is always huge. Reducing enemies' movement just doesn't allow them to position themselves and lets you position your characters more freely. She gets a aura crit to the entire team, increases crit by 20%. Just for fun. Why not allow your allies to hit a bit harder? Her best in slot weapons would be Newborn. I would most likely rock Hourglass, just to increase her physical attack, as well as not let allies ruin her movement or her speed. Her best in slot turret, I would most likely use Course of Fortune, but I could see Dream also being good just for increased damage, or having March of the Chariot, and just allowing her to have ridiculous movement all over the map. But overall, that is my personal top 5 epic characters. Again, some people might disagree with me, some people might argue with me in the comment section and say, you know, you don't have them built, how do you know they're top 5? This is based on my opinion as a person who does PvP a lot, and what I can see these characters like having their potential. I have seen CN accounts using Lash and her destroying teams. As I showcased, her piercing damage can do work. And it's unfortunate that I don't see people use her more often, because I would love to see some of these characters that don't get a lot of spotlight being used. So that's it from me. I hope to see some people use them, as I love seeing new strategies, and honestly, if someone beats me by using a funky strategy, all the best to them, because good for them for outplaying.